Allesandro Rotondi is a third-year music student at the University of Windsor. And for a 21-year-old, his taste in music certainly lies outside of his demographic. He is a huge fan of the Beach Boys. So big, in fact, that he took it upon himself to finish one of their songs, an unfinished piece that he happened to find online. It's called I'm Begging You Please. And here's a wee taste of it.
Say you'll miss the way it used to be. Say you'll make it happen somehow. Say you'll take a chance at love again without ending up with a broken heart again. I'm in the sign. I'm begging you with all my heart.
Allesandro Rotondi joins me in the studio. Good morning. Welcome.
Good morning, Tony.
So what is the story behind that piece of music?
All right. Well, I was in a class called Ethnomusicology at the University of Windsor, and basically what happened is our final project was to do an ethnography, which is a cultural study of a community of music, and being a big fan of the Beach Boys, I wanted to do California music. So I basically set out to find a tune that I really enjoyed from them that was unreleased, and I wanted to complete it. So I went to my house, and I have a bit of an informal recording studio in my basement. I took the tune, and I wrote a chorus for it, and I finished the chorus, rather, because the piano demo I found was about a minute long, and then I added a bunch of instruments to it and arranged it, essentially.
Let's back up a bit here. You wanted to find a song that they had not finished.
Yes.
And then finish it.
Yes.
I mean, how do you go about looking for something like that?
Well, basically, I'm a huge fan of collecting bootlegs and things like that. So tunes that they never finished back in the 70s and some from the 60s. And a lot of them exist online in Beach Boys forums, and some fans have, I'll trade you this for that, or whatever it may be. So I have a collection of them at home, and I often listen. I'm like, oh, that's a great tune. I'm surprised they never finished that. Oh, that's also a great tune. You know?
And this particular song, at least what was there when you found it, was written by Brian Wilson?
It was written by Brian Wilson, yeah. It was one of the main composers in the Beach Boys. And all it really was him playing about a minute of a sketch into a tape recorder back in the 70s. Not very good quality, and that's all that exists of this tune.
So what did you do next, by way of finishing this?
Yeah. Then, so he had a verse and a chorus. I finished the chorus, added a second verse, a bridge, and then I started from square one, and I recorded everything by myself: piano, drums, ukulele, bass. I used a synthesizer to do instruments that he may have used in the 60s, like harpsichord, marimba, things along that line.
Now, anybody familiar with the Beach Boys knows that their harmonies are an integral part of everything that they do. How did you do all of that?
Well, I decided to take it. I did all the vocal parts myself, and I thought about it in a way of how would he arrange these vocal parts. So I did the bass part, the baritone part, and 2 tenor parts, and I double-tracked them twice each, which became 8 vocal tracks to give it that layered Beach Boys harmony sound.
And how long did it take you to do this?
The project it maybe took about 20 hours. I also wrote I had to write a research paper to describe the process of the song as well, so that was part of the project.
So all of this began as a class project?
Yes.
How'd you do in terms of a grade?
I think it was 97, I think.
Very nice. Very nice.
I was pretty happy with
it. But there's much more to this story than that. You have this finished version
yes.
of a Brian Wilson bootleg.
Yes.
What did you do with it?
Well, what happened was when I finished the tune, I had tickets with my girlfriend to see Brian Wilson and Al Jardine, as well as Blondie Chaplin, 3 Beach Boys who were coming through to Caesars Windsor, and I knew that it would be a good time to let them know about the project. So I basically sent an email to some folks in the inner circle and said, here's what I'm doing for this project. Here's a copy of the song. I'm a really big fan of yours, and I would like to know what you think of this project. And I ended up hearing back from Al Jardine, one of the original Beach Boys, who you may know from the song Help Me Rhonda, and he was interested in it, which was, my eyes nearly popped out of my head when I heard about that. And he invited me basically to go over to the show and go before the show started to go backstage and give him a copy. So I ended up going there on the day of the show, and I gave him a copy of my CD with my girlfriend, and I ended up meeting Blondie Chaplin as well. And he invited us for their rehearsal before the show, which was out of this world for me.
So you were there for their sound check.
Yes.
What have they told you about the tune?
Well, Al, when I gave Al the CD, he remembered. He said, "Oh, I remember hearing about this." And once in a while, we find unfinished tunes that have never really come out of the can, as he would say, out of the garbage can. So he told me he'd listened to it, and a couple of the backing members I hooked up with later on and gave them copies, and they told me they'd give it a listen on the bus. And in fact, one of the percussionists said, "Next time you're in LA, let me know." So not that I'm in LA very often, but if that ever happens, I definitely will hopefully give him a call. But a couple of the backing band members that listened to it did tell me they enjoyed the tune very much, and Al Jardine joked with me that perhaps next time him and Brian are in the studio, they'll take on this tune.
Let's back up a bit here. You're 21 years old. How and
Yes.
why did you become such a big fan of the Beach Boys?
I got a hold of my parents' records, and I ended up getting into them through high school through one of my teachers, Mr. Gagno, at St. Anne's, actually. And I just loved their music. I fell in love with the harmonies and the chords, and I found that Brian Wilson was such an amazing composer, and his use of chords and jazz vocal harmonies melded with rock and roll and things like that. I just loved their music, so I dug as deep into their catalog as I could.
Among your circle of friends there in Tecumseh, and while you were at St. Anne High School, were you the only Beach Boys fan, save for the aforementioned teacher?
I guess you could say that probably. There's maybe a couple others, but not to my obsessive degree, I suppose.
Understood. Now, you're a singer-songwriter yourself. What's in your future?
Well, hopefully in the future, I'm actually working on an album right now. The title of it is Around You, and I'm hoping to release it in May of 2019. I'm writing original tunes for it, and for this song, I'm not sure what this song will hold in the future, but there's a couple other Beach Boys that come around here that are touring on their own as well. Perhaps I will try to give them a hold of the song to see what they think about it. Maybe in the summertime. That's the future for that. Otherwise, I perform around the area, and I go to school at the university, obviously, for music.
This album you are working on, do you expect that it will have some of that Beach Boys / California flavor to it?
Absolutely, yes. There's quite a bit of harmony, vocal layering, and instruments that harken back to the California sound. Absolutely.
It's a neat story. Thanks so much for sharing it with us.
Thank you for having me, Tony. It's an honor to be here.
That is Allesandro Rotondi, who discovered an unfinished song by Beach Boys legend Brian Wilson online, and he figured he'd just go ahead and finish it. It's called I'm Begging You Please, and here it is.